If you have opinions about this specific matter, Assassin's Creed, Thomas Lockley, and you wish to share them with me in order to begin a discussion, come join my live stream tomorrow, 3 PM Central. The live is already scheduled, so you can click the link in the description and select Notify Me. We'll be talking about Thomas Lockley and many other topics. See you there. Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. So, Assassin's Creed Shadows. Again. Hear me out because this is getting insane. It all started as a game review which proceeded to become a historical analysis turned social media battleground, then turned into a national upheaval, which then became a diplomatic crisis with politicians involved. Next is what? They're gonna start a damn world war for it, deploy weapons of mass destruction, and here it comes, nuclear winter. The production of Assassin's Creed Shadows has just become a civilization-ending event. Well, I can't say I'm surprised to find out that it was Ubisoft, in fact, that did us all in. Anyway, speculative future occurrences aside, ladies and gentlemen, this is a masterfully historically accurate representation of the current state of our species' collective psyche. Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today we're talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows, developed by lawless swampland of dishonor, Ubisoft. Now, I have a few videos on this game myself, mostly discussing the historical accuracy or lack thereof, something I've been doing consistently since 2013, before anyone starts accusing me of, oh, you're jumping on the bandwagon just for clicks. I started doing this sort of historical evaluation of games to geek out before it became a political matter within the culture war. But I digress. The core of the conundrum is that Assassin's Creed Shadows is set in feudal Japan, so gamers initially expected to play as a Japanese samurai guy. Also because, to be fair, the protagonist being native to the setting of an Assassin's Creed game has been sort of a trademark of the series. For instance, Assassin's Creed 2 set in Italy and you play as Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Assassin's Creed Odyssey set in Greece and you play as a Greek guy, with the result of hearing the word alaka every 16 seconds. In Assassin's Creed Origins you play as an Egyptian guy. In 3 you get a big chunk of the game where you can play as a Native American, so on and so forth. But then again, in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, yes, you're playing as a Norse, but the game is set in England. Shut up, it's about Vikings. Oh, Metatron, what about Black Flag, huh? You're playing as a Welsh protagonist, but it's set in the Carabeans. They are buccaneers, and one of the most famous buccaneers was Welsh. I mean... Anyways, moral of the story, some gamers don't like the protagonist's choice and then they get called racists for it, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the people in the comments were actually racist, and they were horrible, but apart from that, I think that there are a few gamers that get enraged because the simple fact that they didn't like the protagonist's choice doesn't make them automatically racist. But unfortunately, this word is now absolutely overused, as we can see ourselves as we review the data online, and according to Google Ngram, look at the difference in usage of the word racist between 2019 and the freaking 1800s. We say racist more than they did in the freaking post-World War. If that doesn't tell you something. Regardless, most people, including me, don't have a problem with a black protagonist. It's the reasons why Ubisoft did it, which, let's be real, it's DEI checkboxes. You know it, I know it, we all know it. Although, to be precise, I do have to say one thing. You know that I hated when they race swap a historical character, whether it be a black character turning white or a white character turning black, but at least in this case, Yasuke is a real historical character, a real historical black African. Since it's Ubisoft you're talking about, I was half expecting them to make Oda Nobunaga black, so that's half a victory. We have a throng of channels that have become Japanese history specialists overnight. I love it! Literally, all it took to become a master of Japanese history was a 15 minutes Google research. Took me 4 years at university. I must be really slow in the head. And by the way, I have a question to these channels that now state categorically he was not a samurai. He was a samurai, 100%, 100%, 100%. While engaged in your 15 minutes of deep empirical studies, what types of safeguards did you implement to defend against selective bias? How did you form valid, coherent and robust connections as you are reviewing all the available data both in English and in Japanese? And of course you must have done your very best in those 15 minutes to assess the validity of each source examined. Right? Yeah, didn't think so. Back to my story. Now gamers and YouTubers are enraged. They feel double wronged. And when I say enraged, I don't particularly like the execution when it comes to historical part, but then again I agree with the base core sentiment, so I have nothing against the videos that they made or these creators as a whole. But there are other creators that went completely nuts, yelling and screaming like maniacs. Yeah, those were cringe. There was, for example, this gaming YouTuber who was doing this. Not gonna mention him, he doesn't deserve it. An absolute psychological case study, let me tell you that much. Some Japanese gamers also feel wronged because they say, well, why us? And then with this whole idea of Yasuke will not be 100% sure whether he actually was samurai or he wasn't. I've already talked about this at length. But in general, I just want to say to the Japanese gamers in this specific situation, I do absolutely get it. You want to defend the correct representation of your history. Nothing wrong with that. A typical comment that you get in this situation is, well, it's fiction, so why do you care? At the end of the day, historical fiction and low fantasy still need to follow a suspension of disbelief that is logical, in order for the product to be believable and good. And any fantastical elements must be added through coherent narrative integration. Moreover, Ubisoft keeps complicating the things because at any given point in any interview the developers plus talking head historians keep saying historical, 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 and as you can read, in their own words, we are showing real historical figures such as Oda Nobunaga and a lot of events that happened during that time, so you're not only playing in feudal Japan, but learning about this fantastic time period. Therefore, they did not say that this is historical fiction loosely based on historical events. No, they said that this is a great way to learn the history of Japan. So that point of disagreement is moot. But all of this introduction served the purpose of introducing the next section, which is really the meat and bone and core of this discussion. Within this whole situation, angered gamers and YouTubers looked for someone to blame, a scapegoat. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Tom Cruise's lost twin, Thomas Lockley. And I swear if the family name was the one they had in common and not the first name, I would have totally believed it. And here it goes. It's him. It's him! It's always been him! Screams the mob while brandishing torches and pitchforks. It's all his fault. Take him to the gallows. He has been doing this since 2015, changing Wikipedia since 1915, injecting DEI since the 13th century. Take him! Seize him! He's evil incarnate. He's the devil! Let me let you on a little secret here. He's not Satan. He is. I'm only joking. But seriously, next time Ubisoft CEO goes to one of these like gaming convention of sorts, I'm gonna sprinkle some holy water on him. If his skin starts burning, at least we know. But jokes aside, in all seriousness, this perfidious historian. Not a historian, by the way. His specialty is education. I'm expecting precision here. Thomas Lockley has been the center of what could be considered to be a debunking campaign. Now, I don't have a problem per se with it in the sense that, well, if you disagree with his takes and you want to debunk him, that's absolutely fine. Debunk anyone. Debunk me if you disagree with what I say. You know, attacking the arguments or presenting evidence, reason and logic, I have nothing against that. But in some cases, with some YouTubers, this seems to have escalated to almost a harassment campaign, and that I don't support, particularly if we enter the realm of cancel culture. So it's a case by case with YouTubers. Now, as a history and civilization focused channel, and being someone who actually has a degree in Japanese history and language, Thomas Lockley is being debunked and is being harassed. Does he deserve it? I'll rest my case in a moment, but let me first say that I'm not here as an apologist for Thomas Lockley. Why would I? I don't even know the guy apart from a few emails we have exchanged, so I will point out the elements of his thesis and modus operandi I disagree with. But I'm also not here to support this accusation of debauchery a priori, according to which Mr. Lockley is a criminal mastermind of undercover DEA injection and politically motivated historical rewriting, without first reviewing the evidence. That's fair, right? Now, regardless of my personal university curriculum, degree, blah blah blah, I think the reason why I might be, as a content creator, in the right spot to talk about this objectively and impartially is the fact that I get called both a bigot and woke. Apparently, according to some people, I'm an alt-right grifter while simultaneously being a left-wing troll, which of course confirms I'm neither. So I've conducted a thorough and comprehensive investigation into all the claims made on social media in the last few weeks so that we can actually separate the objective facts from the uninformed fiction. And mind you, about those people accusing me of being an alt-woke, I suppose, I'm intrigued by their stupidity. They occasionally infect the comment section while at the same time showing the entire world that their IQ is connected to the same integer that we use to represent the freezing point in Celsius. Which I find fascinating. Honest to God. how they can perform even the most basic functions of human survival with an IQ that is indeed subatomic. It's so... I digress. But at the end of the day, like him or hate him, in the world of academia, not the world of politics, you don't attack someone ad hominem trying to cancel or silence him just because he dares to disagree with you/your side. You instead present your counter-arguments and defend your case intellectually. And even though I myself make a lot of debunking content, I want this to be known. No man I disagree with should ever fear any real-world repercussions to speaking his mind freely against any points I present into my historical analyses. Which takes us to this comment written by an actual specimen of the Neanderthal species. You thought they were extinct, but oh no, one of them is in my comments section. Thomas Lockley has been discredited. This video didn't age well. Dear Denisovan, here are the facts. Differently from all the other YouTubers who, at least 2 or 3, maybe even 5 years ago, took Thomas Lockley's word and his book as the gospel of our Lord and Savior without questioning him in any way, shape or form, I was the one who 2 years ago made a video where I literally said that a lot of what's written in the book African Samurai by Thomas Lockley is fantasy. It's fiction. I'm the one who said it. Before all of this, so my videos aged like fine wine. Question, is Thomas Lockley the ultimate authority on the history of Yasuke? No. And neither am I. Alright, but what about this accusation that he has used a fake alt account to manipulate the Wikipedia page, and possibly Britannica, putting links and references to his book and papers while simultaneously allegedly trying to hide his identity? It turns out that the account called Tottori Tom is in fact Mr. Lockley. Aha! Caught you right-handed in your deception. Wait. Alright, detective. Let's examine this one thoroughly, shall we? Looking forward to the sardonic banter of the private eye. The name of the fake account used to allegedly hide the identity of the culprit, Mr. Lockley, is Tottori Tom. Name of the defendant? Tom. And he was living in Tottori, which is the name of the capital of the homonymous prefecture, Tottoriken. Tom, Tottori Tom. Are we serious about this? Let me get this straight. Criminal mastermind, was it? Man, whoever found this out must have put together a team directly from Scotland Yard. Because I mean, to uncover that level of evidence, sifting through all those layers of deception in order to finally uncover the truth and unmask him, Tottori Tom is indeed Tom, who lives in Tottori. No, wait, it gets better. I looked into it deeply. And won't you know that Thomas Lockley actually said publicly during his interview with Anthony Cummings that Tottori Tom is in fact his account, making changes onto Wikipedia. So, you know, once again, you can hate the guy. He did it publicly. So the idea that he used an alt account with a different name to hide his identity while pretending to be someone else in order to boost his book, the accusation is false. We can all disagree with him and his historical takes. I'll mention a few, but it's just the false accusations without actually digging it. I know they make great titles for thumbnails, clicks, whatever. It's false. It's false. He didn't try to hide his identity. Next, let's now talk about the diplomatic crisis, because, I mean, we have had both politicians, senators, and journalists from Japan joining the fray. And here we are. You know how I know that this has become now a political matter and not an academic matter? Because a typical symptom of the switch between academic discourse into political discourse is the presence of absolute statements, which professional historians very rarely make, particularly in the presence of scant historical evidence. I mean, that's insane. Well, that and the involvement in this discussion of Senator Hamada Satoshi. Now, there is this article specifically that I wanted to have a look at, and it says, Nihon University erases Associate Professor Lockley's resume, NHK deletes program over Assassin's Creed issue. Now, I've spoken to Thomas Lockley recently. He unfortunately asked me not to show the emails on screen, and of course anything that is said within the privacy of private messaging, I'm gonna respect that. I wish he actually allowed me to show the emails, because I think personally that they would have spoken in his favor. But once again, he asked me not to show, so I will not show them. Regardless, he hasn't confirmed that he was fired, but once again, unless he proves it to me, like he actually sends me proof that he hasn't been fired, I can't comment on either of these two possibilities. But if you scroll down in this article, you'll notice something absolutely insane. They say, Professor Lockley seems to have written a fictional novel about black samurai, so far so good, but he sold it overseas as historical fact. Professor Lockley's academic paper is 100% fiction. This is where they lose me, right? What do you mean 100% fiction? I mean, I get it. The title, African Samurai, already putting samurai in the title when you don't know if he was an actual samurai or not. You know, I can get it. Yeah, he's pushing it as historical. I get that. The true story of Yasuke, a legendary black warrior in feudal Japan. I also have an issue with the subtitle, to be honest, because I would have said based on a true historical character. But regardless of all that, to go all the way out and to go from a fairly based critique, which is the idea of don't push it as history if it's fictional history, to it's 100% fiction. How is it 100% fiction? I really don't get it. And I'm not trying to get a strawman here, but is Yasuke 100% fiction? What about the Jesuits? Are they fictions? Europeans encountering the Japanese? Oda Nobunaga, is he fiction? Samurai in armor, battles, combat, it's the whole Sengoku period fiction. Like, it's insane to call it 100% fiction. This is why I mean it's politics when you come across these sort of categorical statements. There is some history into his book, regardless of the fictionalized size of it. Which takes us to this Nippon Journal coverage of the situation of Thomas Lockley. Now get ready, so basically it would be this one here, because I actually watched it in Japanese to make sure that the translation was correct. So here is what we get from these speakers. Thomas Lockley, an associate professor at Nihon University, falsified the English Wikipedia page by quoting his own book before it was released and sent out a false image of Yasuke as an African samurai to the world. This was discovered by the political correctness community, and a false history of Japan is being created and spread around the world in order to dilute the guilt of the history of racial discrimination by white people. And to be fair, he does pretty much say that. I mean, the translation is not perfect, but yeah, he does say that basically political correctness group is defending white people. Defending white people? Oh my gosh, talking about not knowing anything about Western politics and still speaking.
実はゲームはほとんどやらない。私もやらないんですよ。トランプでさえやらないぐらいです。
Okay, so yeah, what he just said now is that he doesn't do games. So he spoke about Assassin's Creed and they said, usually I don't do games. I mostly don't do games. And the guy on the right says, oh, me neither, I don't do games. And then the guy on the left is like really agreeing with the idea of not doing games. Oh my gosh. We know that you don't do games. We know. どうぞお願いします。
そういう意味では
Oh, this guy really hates video games. Look at him. He's like, もうゲームってなんだ俺大嫌いなんだよ。すみません。失礼いたしました。
存在なんですね。でこれ黒人侍安家というふうな言い方なんですが、加えたということは資料に残ってるんですが、逆にありますから、そこまではメディア、欧米のメディアが報じている。逆に言うとそれぐらいしかないんだと。出て日本人も逆に言うとそれぐらいしかないんです。白人差別をしていたのは白人だけじゃないんだと。日本人もやってたの。むしろ日本人の方が先なんだと。イエズス会は止めたのにみたいな。
That's the part. So he's saying, you see, what they're trying to do is that presenting this idea that it wasn't just white people, Japanese did it too. But who would do that in the Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the part. That's the part. 白人だけじゃなくて that's not the point of the people who are injecting DEI, sir. And not trying to say it's not just the white people, it's the Japanese too. No. そういうことじゃないんだよ。失礼ですいません。I kept the Japanese to a minimum here because I don't want to annoy people who don't speak it, but if Nippon Journal wants me to actually address this topic, I can make an entire video in Japanese to discuss my position on this matter. Here's the thing, you can totally challenge the notion that Yasuke was 100% a samurai, really. I do myself. I always lean towards the idea that he wasn't samurai, but I also keep an open mind in the idea that it could be that he was made samurai, and the reality fact is we don't know. And that's why I have a problem with people making statements when there is a lack of actual evidence that can point to a definitive answer, which makes it extremely unprofessional. And when it comes to absolute statements, check this out. And here we are. Yu Hirayama enters the fray. We read, real Japanese historian Yu Hirayama says that Yasuke was a samurai. There seems to be a lot of talk about Yasuke, a black man who served Nobunaga Oda. Historical records about him are quite scarce. But there is no doubt that he was a samurai serving Nobunaga. This is so unprofessional, is beyond me. He just said a second prior to making the absolute statement, he said that historical records about him, aka Yasuke, are quite scarce. So how can you make a statement like this if you just said that they are scarce? I'll tell you how. You can do it if you're not doing history, you're doing politics. Why do I say that? Well, do you remember the Japanese senator I mentioned a second ago? Mr. Satoshi Hamada? Well, he's a member of a parliamentary group that is famous for anti-communism. Why does that matter? Well, because Mr. Hirayama is a member, is quite of an active member of the Japanese Communist Party. So what you just saw right now with this historian is not an academic statement. No historian in his right mind would make a categorical statement about a piece of information for which we have scarce and scant evidence. And you know why I know I'm right? Because he recanted it. Now, to his credit, I read all of his discussions and all of his justifications for his statement before he actually came to his senses and said, guys, we don't know, which is what I've been saying this entire time for 3 years. But regardless, he did make some very good points, and simply because I'm not a big fan of communism, it doesn't mean that just because he's a communist, see, that's what I don't do. You know, you can be whatever, but if the information you present is solid, it is solid. And he made some very good points when it comes to the idea of the surname, the fact that the surname, the lack of a surname doesn't necessarily mean that he wasn't samurai and all that. It's interesting read. But as I say, he did, when he finally regained some professionalism, stepped outside of the political battle and culture war and made an academic statement where he said he wishes that he was a samurai, but he can't prove it, and there is no way to prove it, so you can't be absolute about it. Thank you. So far we've got politicians and journalists that don't understand international politics, we've got historians that make statements like politicians. I told you this was gonna be a mess, and we're not done. Not to mention the people that were celebrating the idea that this guy was fired, that he had to flee the country, that he was exiled. Now, I don't know how much of this actually happened, but what I do know is that I wouldn't celebrate any of these just because I disagree with historical points that he makes on his book that I don't think are history. For instance, the part in the book African Samurai when he talks about how important of a figure within Japanese history Yasuke was because he prevented the head of Nobunaga from being taken from his opponents, effectively changing, creating a butterfly effect. Yeah, okay. So there is no proof historically that Yasuke actually did prevent Nobunaga's assassins from taking his head. Thomas Lockley has clearly exaggerated the weight and historical importance of Yasuke as a character within Japanese history. But when is enough? They went for his book, his name, his reputation, his career, his teaching curriculum, his job, wanted him exiled from Japan, celebrated him being fired allegedly. What's next? Are we gonna go after his family? Are we gonna go after his friends, next of kin? Thomas Lockley was also strongly criticized for his idea to delete his social media presence, aka his Facebook page is being locked or frozen at the moment. Now, I personally don't see that as, oh, he went into hiding. I understand that when you are attacked like this, and believe me, sometimes I get attacked as well, but I do this as a job, so people can attack me all they want, they can make debunking videos, they can call me grifter, blah blah blah, I don't care. Best case scenario, if they really present some good points, I'll take the time. If they don't, I will ignore them. But I do understand that for someone who is not used to this sort of attention, it can be really exhausting. He did mention death threats, but when it comes to that, and Thomas, if you're watching, and I'm imagining you are, I'm gonna give you a little piece of advice from someone who kind of has to do with this kind of stuff. If you want to use the line, I receive death threats, hence I need to remove my social media access and make it private, you have to take screenshots and prove it. Because what you may not know is that everybody claims this when they're under fire. Because some people use it as a way to shift the narrative in order to become a victim of a greater offense than the one they're being accused of. So it's a way to redirect focus, and it's quite manipulative. I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, and I'm not saying that I don't believe you. I'm saying that the internet will not believe you unless you present proof. So if you want to send me some of those screenshots, feel free through my email, and then I'll confirm it. But if you don't have those screenshots, I would drop the idea of I received threats as a line of defense. Now, when it comes to the idea of Thomas Lockley actually utilizing his alt, that now we know, Tottori Tom, he wasn't doing it to hide, but he still did go into Wikipedia and added links to his book, added links to his papers, so as a way to promote his book. Now, do I have a problem with that? I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because yes, this could be, as some people say, his way to manipulate the historical understanding that people have and push his own ideas. But at the same time, if I did a lot of research on a specific topic, and then I am confident with my research and the results of that research, and then I go and I find this Wikipedia article dedicated to, let's say, Roman armor, but they say a lot of stuff that doesn't overlap correctly with the research and the results that I have. Say, for example, that they said that no, Roman armor was made of leather, but I did my research and it says iron and low carbon steel. Would I change with my personal account? Would I go and change and say, no, it wasn't leather, it was iron? Yes, people do it all the time. So the simple fact that he changed it in order to put it into alignment with the results of his own research, I don't see a problem with that. And once again, we speak a little bit about this in the 16 emails that we exchange. Unfortunately, I cannot show you once again, but the way he explained it to me sounds like he wasn't doing it in bad faith. Once again, I don't know that. He could be completely lying to me and I have no idea. But what I'm saying is that I don't necessarily see it as an indication of nefarious or malicious intention necessary. It could be, it might not be. And when it comes to promoting your own book, well, that's what all authors do. But of course, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Still talking about these emails that we have exchanged over the years since 2019, one of the things that I noticed, and one of the reasons why I'm not convinced that this guy is this monster manipulator who is trying to push politics and inject it in history as much as possible, is the following. In all of these emails, even when we disagreed on a few points and agreed on others, he's always been very polite with me. And he even said that it would have been an honor. He said, say the word, when it comes to doing a collaboration and coming onto my channel. And I mean, if this is really someone who wants to push the political rewriting of history, he wouldn't touch my channel with a 10-foot pole. Because that's exactly what I fight. And when it comes to finding these people, like the professor from Vanity Fair that I've debunked a million times, I showed no hesitation. I didn't fucking blink. It doesn't feel like it. All the emails that we have exchanged, yes, there are a couple of things that he said that when I read, I'm like, I disagree with that. There are some elements of his thought that I disagree with. But he was also very forthcoming and accepting of anything that I presented to him as a counter-argument. So at the end of the day, since I don't have enough data to be categorical about it and say, no, absolutely this guy is 100% innocent, or no, this guy, you were right, he is a historical revisionist trying to push DI and the manipulation of history at all costs, including the expenses of the correctness of the historical archives, I don't know 100%, but I'm just saying as a feeling, it doesn't give me that vibe, if you will, particularly due to the many emails that we have exchanged, with some of which were quite long. I always work on the principle of innocent until proven guilty, which is, I mean, the base of law, and I've been quite fair even when talking about creators that were very unfair towards me, but still, whenever there is a big situation or a scandal that has to do with them, I've always said, yes, but you know, court of public opinion is not enough. We need to gather as much evidence as possible, look into this, and only when we can state something like we have an admission of guilt or there is enough evidence mounting up to be certain that the person is in fact maliciously operating under malicious intent, that's when we attack and that's when we strike. I do believe that he truly believes that Yasuke was 100% a samurai, which is of course a point of disagreement between me and him, but I do believe he believes it. And as long as he believes it, and there was no, I don't think he did, as far as I know, he didn't get any money from Ubisoft, by the way, when it comes to his participation. He has nothing to do, and he himself hates Ubisoft now because of all this situation, so at least we've got that one in common. Then whatever he has stated really has to do with his freedom of speech, and if you disagree, debunk him. But honestly, I wouldn't go for his career, his job, his personal life. I think we can be more decent than that. But anyways, this is my opinion on Thomas, Lockley, and this whole conundrum. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you agree, if you disagree with me completely, I'm more than happy to change my mind, of course, if evidence is presented. And until then, thank you very much for watching, and remember, the Metatron has spread its wings. Goodbye.